Hi, this is Mark Johnston with the Field Museum in Chicago, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Nicole Pellegrini from the University of Illinois and Karen Klinger, also from Field Museum. Thanks for attending our presentation on managing multi-organizational habitat data using ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Server. We designed a database system that tracks habitat across dozens and what will eventually be hundreds of rights-of-way organizations throughout the U.S. One key motivation of this is because monarch butterfly populations have plummeted by up to 90% for the main population east of the Rockies and up to 97% for the population west of the Rockies. Before we dive into the database system, I'm going to give a quick background on monarch butterflies. First, it's important to know that monarch butterfly caterpillars feed exclusively on milkweed, the plant that's pictured here. This is a map that shows the migratory behavior of monarch butterflies. The vast majority overwinter in Michoacan, Mexico. There is also a non-migratory population in Florida and a population west of the Rockies that overwinters along the coast in California. For the main population, it takes 3 generations to get from their overwintering grounds to the summer breeding grounds in northern US and Canada. That's about 3,000 miles away. During this time, adults live only 2 to 3 weeks as they breed and forage for milkweed to lay their eggs. In the fall, the super generation, as it's called, flies all the way back to Mexico where they overwinter. For the lucky ones that make it there, they live several months until the spring migration. While overwintering in Mexico, scientists estimate how the population is doing by the amount of forest they occupy while roosting in dense clusters. The graph shows the decline in the area occupied by monarchs from 1994 to present. There are lots of up and downs typical of insect population, but what's not typical is a strong downward trend. This next graph is similar, but it shows the estimated population of monarchs west of the Rocky Mountains. You can see an even more dramatic decline from over 1.2 million individuals in 1997 that's gone down to 30,000, despite the big increase in the number of monitored sites shown by the line. So what's causing this serious decline in the populations? Well, most scientists point to major reductions in milkweed habitat areas due to land conversion and especially changes in agricultural practices, such as the widespread use of GMO crops, coupled with the increased use of herbicides and pesticides, and also drought and climate change play a role. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Nicole, to talk about how rights-of-way organizations are working together to help provide more habitat for pollinators.
Thank you, Mark. In order to restore monarch populations, milkweed abundance in the Midwestern U.S. will need to increase by a minimum of 1.3 billion milkweed stems, or double the current estimate, across all viable land use types. In combination with efforts from agriculture and other sectors, rights-of-ways will play a critical role in reaching this goal. Rights-of-ways are lands immediately adjacent to, under, or above transmission and distribution lines, highways, pipelines, and rail infrastructure. The more than 40 million acres of utility and transportation rights-of-way land across the U.S. is valuable for sustaining plants and wildlife as extensive networks that connect a variety of crucial habitat types, follow migratory patterns, and often face minimal development or disturbance compared to other landscape types. Increasingly, roadside, utility, and rail corridors are using practices known as integrated vegetation management, which promotes early successional, low-growing vegetation like grasses and native plants through a combination of minimally invasive methods. This approach also creates ideal habitat for monarchs and other pollinators. The Rights-of-Way as Habitat Working Group, facilitated through the University of Illinois at Chicago, recognizes the opportunity to coordinate rights-of-way management trends and pollinator habitat restoration. The working group brings together over 200 energy and transportation agencies, a variety of state, federal, and local agencies, conservation nonprofits, and other partners to have a collaborative conversation about how we can be managing and promoting healthier ecosystems along rights-of-ways and other lands. Their insights are essential to finding the most cost-effective, appropriate, and realistic practices to ensure projects can be implemented successfully. However, early on, the working group recognized that there is little aggregated data on the quantity and quality of habitat on energy and transportation lands needed to inform conservation strategies, policy, and outreach. With a grant provided by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, the Rights of Ways Habitat Working Group has worked with the Field Museum to create a database system to track conservation efforts and habitat quality that is accessible to our diverse range of stakeholders. We first began by identifying key objectives that would make the database a valuable tool for participating organizations, the public, and the pollinators it aims to protect. Through both group and one-on-one discussions, we found that it was important to provide a central location for right-of-way organizations to track and report their conservation efforts. The database offers tiered and further customizable sharing options that facilitate collaborations and partnerships across sectors, including sharing aggregated data with the public, state, and federal resource agencies to help inform species conservation and communicate ecological value of energy and transportation lands. Ultimately, we hope that these considerations encourage widespread voluntary action by utilities and transportation agencies and improve our understanding of available habitat. Mark will now describe more specific database system requirements and functionality.
Thanks, Nicole. The system requirements for designing the database system posed a number of challenges for us, and it required us to come up with a very customized solution. The first thing we needed to do was to track habitat across many organizations that all needed to contribute and conform to a single database system and specific, often sensitive information about where their habitat areas are located, while also keeping that information private from other organizations and the general public, unless they explicitly chose to share their data. Organizations also need to be able to share certain types of data with other organizations while being able to maintain their own data so that they could essentially have their own interface to the database where they can upload securely through a portal all of their data and maintain it from year to year on their own. Field workers needed a way to capture data directly into the system using mobile devices. A lot of organizations also have their own system for capturing data, and we wanted those organizations to be able to contribute their data to the system after their field season through bulk uploads. We needed public and private reporting methods so that the public can see one version of the data that is generalized to the county scale, making it non-sensitive, and also private access to the same data for each individual organization that allows them to see their site-specific sensitive data. Finally, we also needed to automate the system administration to be able to accommodate hundreds of organizations without too many administrative demands. This slide shows the back end of our database system and how it's a hybrid solution that combines ArcGIS with SQL Server and ArcGIS Online. We use ArcGIS Online for managing all of our user permissions and for controlling access to data and objects we're sharing with users. We use ArcGIS Server for the actual hosting of the data. This allows us to create analysis queries across related tables directly in the SQL database. And ArcGIS Server, we're able to use a server object interrupt, which means that if a user enters data with a blank or a wrong organization ID, for example, it will correct the record so that it still goes to the correct organization. And this also prevents a potential security threat. We also use Python scripts for the back end that automates the process of creating REST endpoints used to host the data. This is the front end of the system, and it's shared through ArcGIS Online. Users have different ways of accessing, editing, and contributing data to the system. They can use ArcGIS Pro with our custom tools for adding and managing data. They can contribute data with mobile applications. And there's also dashboards for both public and private access to different versions of the same data. So now I'm going to walk through what it looks like for setting up new organizations. And we really needed this process to be automated. So we have what we call our intake questionnaire. And don't worry, you don't have to be able to read this. But the idea is that it captures information about the organization. And once they fill that out, it gets verified and approved by someone in the administration group. And then it goes into the SQL database. By going into the database, that triggers an event in our SQL server or in our Python script, which then creates REST endpoints on ArcGIS server. In ArcGIS Online, it also creates new user accounts and permissions, feature layers, web maps, and the private dashboard. Okay, so this gives you an idea what it looks like in ArcGIS Online for the user interface. Each organization has two different groups. One is for their fieldwork group, and one is for the management group. The reason we distinguish between the two is so that field workers see only the field applications that they need, whereas the management group has access to lots of additional tools to work with the data. To give you an idea of what that looks like, this is the management group. There's access here to the private dashboard, lots of REST endpoint layers so that managers can access their data directly with ArcGIS Pro and through the web map. There's a copy of the database schema for organizations that want to mirror our structure. And we have lots of custom tools that are shared via an ArcGIS Pro package for loading data into the system, for example, and for also adding management information and conservation programs, which we'll walk through. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague Karen to talk about data collection and management.
Thanks, Mark. In order to have a single data repository across multiple industries and organizations, it was necessary to create a shared schema consisting of three primary feature layers with established attribute fields, domains, tables, and relationship classes. The first layer are management areas, which generally represent larger areas that are managed programmatically and are designed so that a single set of conservation management activities can be applied to multiple land areas in a designated program. The second layer are sites, which generally represent smaller areas that are managed individually, so conservation measures can be tracked at a more detailed level. The final layer represents points where habitat assessments occur to determine habitat presence and quality in sites and management areas. To assist organizations in getting data into the database, we have provided a customized web map within each organization's fieldwork group. This web map can be used in the collector for ArcGIS app to collect boundary and attribute data for sites and management areas. We have also provided a Survey 123 form for each organization to collect habitat assessment information. This form is based on a pollinator habitat survey developed by the Rights of Way as Habitat Working Group. The form has 3 tiers ranging from determining whether pollinator habitat is present to quantifying habitat quality. Thus, depending on the tier selected in the Survey 123 form, the user will be presented with different question and value options, which for tiers 2 and 3 are used to dynamically calculate a habitat quality score as options are selected. All of the data submitted through Collector and Survey 123 is automatically uploaded into the database for the organization. In addition to providing applications for collecting data in the field, we also know that many organizations will want to use their own systems for data collection. As a result, we have provided a means for data managers to import their data directly into the online database via the organization's REST endpoint. In ArcGIS Pro, data managers can open up a project file from their organization's online portal, which contains customized tools located in the Tasks pane. These tools walk the user through the steps for preparing their data by loading it into the standardized schema, exporting a copy of their online data to store a local backup, previewing their data before it is uploaded to review for any errors, and importing their data to the online database. And now I will turn it back to Mark to tell you more about some of the other custom tools we created.
Thanks, Karen. So still working in ArcGIS Pro, data managers can also create programs which essentially combine lots of areas together to simplify monitoring and land management. This custom set of tools walks the user through creating a program. They can also add conservation measures to that program. and then they can apply that program to lots of features to be managed as a single unit. Similar to this, we also have workflows for working with monitoring data. Okay, so now once we have the data into the database system, we're able to report out in a variety of ways. First, we have queries that we use for exporting data out into other database systems, like the Monarch Conservation Database, or the MCD as it's called, created by the Fish and Wildlife Service. We also prepare reports to comply with annual monitoring requirements that the organizations have. In addition to that, we also have dashboards. This is a public dashboard that generalizes the data to a county scale so that it can be viewed by the public without showing the location of individual sites, which are considered by some organizations to be sensitive data. This dashboard gives the number of organizations involved in the system. It gives how much of the land that they're managing for habitat. It estimates the number of milkweed stems on the land, and it estimates the number of monarch butterflies that are sustained. You can see we're still pretty early in the process of gathering data with a goal of reaching 1 million acres of managed land, but we're beginning to capture data from organizations in several states. We're also following the amount of habitat by sector, by state, and by county in the graphs to the lower left, and users can zoom into individual counties and see additional statistics for each one of those features. Similarly, we also have private dashboards. These are created for each individual organization at the site scale. This dashboard gives more detailed statistics about features and monitoring programs to let the organization know at a glance how well they're doing at reaching their habitat and their program goals. Users can also zoom into and review any validation errors they may have by the level of severity, as shown in the list on the right and the pie chart. So in summary, the purpose, rights of ways provide habitat for monarchs, and we wanted a system to track their contribution. The database objectives were to provide a central repository for tracking rights of way habitat and to promote conservation, communication, and collaboration. The system requirements included data security, data sensitivity, mobile collection and import tools, self-maintenance, and also public and private reporting. The system design we used was a hybrid of ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Server with a shared schema and a Python automation. For data collection and management, we use Collector for ArcGIS and Survey 123 field applications, ArcGIS Pro tools, and also private and public dashboards. If you're interested in getting more information about the Rights of Way organization or to learn more about the database system in general and what went into creating it, please visit our website listed here or get in touch with us directly. Here's our contact information for the presenters. We also wanted to acknowledge our data programmer, Don Morrison, and the program manager, Iris Caldwell. Our project funding was provided through NIFWF, the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and this is a list of our partner organizations that have already started contributing data. Thanks so much for attending the talk, and do get in contact with us if you have any questions. Thanks.